Good morning.
Good morning.
Mrs. Riley, Board of Trustees, faculty, family, friends, and especially the class of 2012, it's an honor for me to speak to you today. As many of you know, the valedictorian at Hopkins is chosen by the class itself. I am so thankful for this opportunity when any of the candidates were ready and capable to be standing here today. This year was very unusual in that there was the first tie ever, leading to a runoff between me and Ben Paul Teal. Ben, in any other situation, you would have had my vote. So how's everybody doing today? Seen a lot of tears already. Today, but also in the past month. I don't mean to brag, but nobody will cry as much as my mom will. A month ago, my brother graduated from college. That's when it started. Around mid-May, the word graduation would set her off. About a week ago, just grad. Starting to say the word would bring tears. Yesterday, any good did the job. Hey Mom, do we have any food? I'm Tears. Mom, I brought some extra tissues with me in case you need more. Again, I want to thank the class of 2012 for giving me this honor. I have to admit, I was a little nervous about what it entailed. Giving a speech in front of so many people is more than a little daunting. Leading up to this moment, I was comforted by the well wishes of my family and friends. My uncle, valedictorian of Hamden Hall, class of 1979, who hadn't spoken to me since my first day at Hopkins as a 7th grader. He actually called to congratulate me. I'm used to pressure like this, but it is usually in the form of a tennis match. For those of you who don't know, tennis has been a very important part of my life. Through tennis, I've met many wonderful people, including my coach Ryan and my guru Oleg, who are both here today. As part of his job as my guru, Oleg has talked with me about what I represent, what the ground I stand on is. Because without ground to stand on, you're completely helpless. You may fight, but you don't really know what you are fighting for. Some people have their egos, others their countries, but for me, the ground I stand on is my family. Whenever I do anything, those are the people I think about and work for. Sure, I was chosen to be valedictorian, but the honor would be empty without my family here, happy for and with me. I actually have a quick test to see if I'm close enough with a certain group to call it family. If I'm comfortable enough to dance like an idiot in front of the group, it passes. I don't know how many of you saw me dancing at prom, but there's no doubt that Hopkins passed. Mr. Taylor actually came up to me laughing and complimented my one-man samba. Looking back on this test and my Hopkins experience, I realize that Hopkins has become just as much a part of my family as any cousin I have. There's the class as a whole and many individuals I'm close with. But having played on the tennis team for 6 years, I feel like I represent Hopkins. I have more firm ground to stand on because of that. In the future, I don't just want to do great things for me and my relatives, but also for Hopkins. I could see no greater honor than coming back here and speaking to the students who will have taken our place. The night after our tennis team won this past New England's, my last team competition for Hopkins, I had a dream about the tennis captains who had previously graduated. I went up to them, gave them hugs, and woke up in tears because I was no longer going to be a part of the Hopkins student body. We are now the kids who return and visit, but are not truly a part of what is happening. Even though the people change and maybe the place changes, I mean, who knows how many more buildings will be here at 5th reunion, let alone our 25th. Hopkins remains the same. and we will always have Hopkins. Having said that, we cannot get our time back. Yes, we will always have Hopkins, but we will no longer all be on this campus together. And my biggest regret about my experience here is that I did not spend that much time physically at Hopkins with you, the class of 2012. We are moving on, and now I'm sure that if only I started back from 7th grade or 9th grade, I would spend as much time as I could with my Hopkins family. But that's the thing. I probably wouldn't. I would probably do the exact same activities as I did the first go-around. Because once we get used to the idea that we have plenty of time for anything, we get complacent. Without a sense of urgency, we as humans will always waste time. So as this class goes on to college, we must try to find some rush to enjoy those years as much as possible. Otherwise, the time will go by just as quickly and silently as our Hopkins experience did. While not being at Hopkins enough is my number one regret, I actually have 4 others that are worth noting. Regret number 4, I wish I said the phrase hopeful youths more often. It'll just sound weird anywhere else. Number 3, I wish I talked more to Mr. Taylor. He was my teacher this year, so I got to know him, and I saw what I'd missed out on during the previous 3 years. He's a great teacher, advisor, and person, and if his kids grow to be anything like him, then they'll be fine. So for those of you who are still at Hopkins or are going to college, take some time to find a professor or 2 to get to know. Number 2, I wish I ate more soup. The soup at Hopkins is delicious. I ate it every day for the last month. And number 1, I wish that we were given more opportunity to work, to play, to compete, without fear of consequences. I'll elaborate on this one. It may be a little more complicated than eating soup. In the classroom, there was always far too much fear of a bad grade. It never mattered how many good marks one got. The only grade one remembered was the bad. There's never a C me on an A+, no congratulations on a job well done. But for a D or an F, you've got teachers and parents to talk to about that. The same was true for my experience in tennis tournaments. Losses would be remembered forever, wins for a few days. In the end, that is just not fair. I can remember the pain severely, but the pleasure, the reason I played the game. Like the smell of chocolate chip cookies that are baking 100 yards away. I can feel the joy of some victories, but only if I focus on the moment and make an effort to remember. The heartbreak can catch me at any time. So, what is the source of these feelings, this focusing on outcomes, that in the moment of a sports game or essay or test prevents one from enjoying himself? The first reason is prestige. Prestige is one's value as determined by others. In worrying about how others would react to my win or loss, for example, I was worrying about prestige. If prestige stops us from having fun, why do we care so much about it? Prestige is an illusion of happiness. Yes, the idea exists, and others will value you for what you do, but we all imagine that prestige gives us some greater importance, and who doesn't like being important? People will like us more or respect us more if we just win, if we just get good grades. But that importance is so fleeting. With one loss, every history of victory is erased, and the joy from victory with it. In this manner, prestige hinders enjoyment in both the event and the aftermath. The second reason for a lack of enjoyment is expectations. Put in a different way, we as Hopkins students do not have the luxury to fail, which is exactly what the ability to fail is. It's a luxury. We and everyone around us have such high expectations for ourselves that anything less than excellence is a failure. I'm being completely serious when I say that the reactions to a B- at Hopkins are the same or even more disappointed than the reactions to a D at countless other schools. These expectations lead to tremendous pressure. One of the greatest tennis players of all time, Billie Jean King, when asked about whether she found it difficult to handle all that went with playing in the finals of a US Open, said, "Pressure is a privilege." And it is. We have earned that pressure because high expectations do not just appear. Expectations are only high because we have proven ourselves able to meet them time and time again. Pressure isn't there to scare us. Pressure is there to remind us how much success we've already attained. These expectations cannot be erased, but should be acknowledged and accepted. We only lose the joy of a task when we fear falling short of expectations. But those expectations are set by our previous record. So if we do exactly what we did before, we will meet them. So if you, the class of 2012, do not take away anything else from this speech, I want you to remember to forget prestige, embrace the fact that you do not have the luxury to fail, and look at pressure as a reminder of how well you've done to get here. Because that pressure is easy to meet. Just repeat what you've been doing all along. By removing the obstacle prestige by caring more about what you are doing than how other people will judge you for what you have done, and by viewing expectations not as something to fear falling short of, but as goals you have met and will continue to meet, you free yourself to focus completely on and enjoy the tasks and challenges that lie ahead. Thank you.